Welcome to the Startup Grind.
This is the first time we're having Startup Grind in the dark.
Yeah.
But I guess there's a first time for everything.
Yeah.
Nothing can stop us, right? So welcome, Bejoy. Normally at Startup Grind, it's our tradition to start from the beginning. We normally start from the beginning, and the beginning is really you telling us about your background, your upbringing, up until where you are socially.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So firstly, thanks for having me, and to the Startup Grind team and everyone that's here this evening. Yeah, I guess we're going to have to do this in the dark. It's more than our history. I guess it's a bit of our current state of affairs. Everyone's got a bit of load shedding at the moment. To start off, in terms of my background, what I've done, I guess I can start with my birth. Born and bred in Zambia. Born in UTH. Probably about 60% of all of you here.
If not 90.
Or, that's right. Or at least 60% of the speakers on the show before.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I was born at UTH in 1983. I'm 33 at the moment. I went to school most of my life in Lusaka. So I started off school at the international school. My parents actually moved into Zambia in the early 70s. And they were working with, my dad was working with the Zimco group and the Indico group. For those of you above 30 would probably remember that. But it hasn't been around for a long time now. So yeah, he was working with the Zimco and Indico groups for quite some time. I studied at the international school for the first few years, and then my dad got a placement in Kawambwa. I'm not sure how many of you even have heard of Kawambwa.
I've been to Kawambwa, so that's a good thing.
Okay, that is a good thing. That is a good thing. Yeah, Kawambwa is. Yes, that's right. Okay, good. So we have some people who are familiar with it. But it's remote. I mean, trust me, it is very remote. You had to drive probably about 27 kilometers to get access to a telephone, 150 kilometers to watch ZNBC. So that was interesting, to say the least. So my dad was working at Kawambwa Tea, which was a government-owned parastatal company at the time. So I did 3 years in Kawambwa, where I schooled in Kawambwa. In fact, our chairperson is somewhere here as well. There he is. He always loves to talk about the best. At almost every speech that he gives about NetOne, or when he's doing an introduction for NetOne, he talks about me having come back from Kawambwa. More than the fact that I lived in Kawambwa, that was a great experience for me. But he prefers talking about when I came back from Kawambwa. So his story goes like this. To be honest, I was about 8, so I'm not quite sure if the story is valid or not. But apparently we got back from Kawambwa, and all I do remember is that I flunked grade 4, or I flunked my entrance to grade 4 because I didn't have enough English skills. I guess studying in Kawambwa, you had a complete Bemba syllabus. So the SIBO story is all about, when I go back to school, and finally they did agree to take me back into grade 3, and we're standing up at the first Friday at the assembly, and they say, okay, can we sing in the national anthem? And I'm used to the Kawambwa style. So I stand up, at attention, and nobody's standing up, everyone's still sitting down, and I start singing the national anthem in Bemba. And all the kids around me are apparently looking at me saying, what's up with this guy? It's clearly something else. So, like I said, I'd like to issue a disclaimer there. I'm not very sure whether the story is valid or not, but apparently that's what happened. So Kawambwa, then I came back into school at ISL again. I left school. Well, I left ISL in 1999 when actually a lot of the parastatals had closed down, and my dad being one of them as well, was forced out of the job at that time. And so we decided, as a family, we decided, okay, I'll go in to do my private O-levels because the international school was very expensive at that time. I think it still is. And so I did my O-levels privately, and after that I went and did accounting. So I'm an accountant by profession. I did my ACCA at Zika's, where I started off in 2000, finished my ACCA in 2003. And I started off with an audit and consulting practice. I'm not sure how many of you remember it. It was called the Chazal de Met, or DCDM Consulting.
Was that your own?
No, that was actually a Mauritian-based entity. It was owned out of Mauritius. They're affiliated to, many of you from the tech industry may have heard of Accenture. So it was affiliated to Accenture and Arthur Anderson, which was one of the old audit and accounting practices. So yeah, I mean, again, SIPO was managing partner at the time, and I got a break during my ACCA. I got a break to do a couple of internships. So started off as an intern at DCDM, went back to school, finished my ACCA, and thankfully got a job at that point. Came back into DCDM, worked with DCDM for about 4 years, where I started off in audits as an audit trainee. Ended up in the DCDM had what they call the software solutions division, which dealt with ERP systems specifically. So I ended up getting into ended up with the software solutions side, which was pretty much the ERP systems and software systems that were being used for larger corporates. And 2006 end, I decided to leave DCDM on various grounds, but I think one of the biggest of them was I think at the time, and it's not really boasting, but I think at that time I was probably one of the youngest managers that worked in the DCDM Africa group, which was about 11 countries, and Zambia being one of those 11 countries. And of course, my salaries rose as I climbed the ladders. But our managing partner, who came out of Mauritius, who was at that time he was quite old. He must have been in his late 60s even then. Jean-Marc Carrel, the late one. But so he came into the office for I think it was his annual reviews or something like that, and he was looking through payroll. And he looked at my salary and said, in his very strong French accent, said, "No, but this guy is too young. He cannot have such a salary." And that was where, I kind of got this idea that, maybe age can be a constraint in the corporate world. So he fought very hard to say that, look, this guy's salary needs to be reduced in some way or the other, or we need to find a new person who's going to be cheaper. And to me that was quite offending, because I never thought my age should contribute to what I earned. Always felt it was the amount of work I put in, or the effort I put in, and what I really achieved as results in that decision. So, yeah, with that, I decided to leave DCDM with the blessings of local management at the time, and started up NetOne in 2007. So, yeah, that's a bit of kind of the history in terms of.
So NetOne is actually your first business.
First and only, yes.
First and only. Okay, so how did you get to a place where you decided this is what I'm going to venture in?
Right, so one of the things that, because I was attached to the software solutions division within DCDM at that time, one of the products we dealt with was Sage. And when I got into this, I was certified at the time with Sage, and there was quite a big demand for Sage ERP systems in the market at that point. This was a time that, again, those of you who are probably over your 30s, 40s would remember a group called Next Technologies. So Next were very big in their days, and they used to do a product called Sun Systems, and that was quite heavily used, but I think Next went through their own internal challenges and ended up closing down, and there was quite a big gap in the ERP market at that time. So because I was certified on ERP and on Sage ERP, and I thought this is probably the best line to start off with. So so I decided to start off with Sage ERP, and because I had the certification at that point, and I had a bit of experience, probably a year and a half of experience in Sage, and yeah, basically from there took on the leap of faith.
So coming from a place where you're getting a salary and you get into a place where you have to now make the money to pay yourself, how was business when you started?
Okay, so maybe let me put this into context. So we started, where the name NetOne comes from, and maybe you've heard this before because we've said it at a couple of events before, but just for those, or for the benefit of those who haven't. So NetOne comes from, honestly speaking, a drunken night with my friends. So I was, it partly comes from my surname. So we're sitting around and as friends, and we're saying, okay, what do we, I'm asking the guys, what do I call this business? And one of the guys, we're going through so many different names, and one of the guys says, why don't you call it Nettikadan 1? So Nettikadan being my surname. I said, well, why Nettikadan 1? He says, well, because you've got jack to show for yourself. You've got a car of your own. You've got zero in cash. You've got really one desk, one laptop. And so, yeah, that should be where it is. So we kind of refined that over the night and came up with the idea of NetOne itself. And getting into that was, it was probably, if I look at it today, it wasn't scary. Because I think I've seen a lot more scary stuff in my life in the last 9 years. But at that point I was 23, and I think my attitude was more, and for the good or for the bad, but my attitude was more around, well, I'm 23, I don't have much to lose. It's something I can get into now, and if it doesn't work out, I can move on to something else, or get back into employment or whatever it is. And I still remember getting back home almost every night, because my dad's a chartered accountant as well, and my family.
Right? You're telling us about NetOne, how your family, how the family was not into it. So how the family was not into entrepreneurship or business, and you started at 23 in 2007. So maybe you can just share more information in terms of how your business grew from that point. What products you are now currently offering as NetOne?
Right, sure. So, I really don't like the mic now that I was talking before without this, but I guess everyone can still hear me without having to hold it like that. Look, I think a bit of a background as to maybe before I even get to what products we offer and what we do, is IT was always kind of a passion that I had. It was always something that I wanted to do. Unfortunately, at that time when I was finishing my O-levels and getting into college university was the time that we had quite a long break at UNZA. For those of you who remember those days where there was a lot of strikes, and not that there are any less now, but there was a lot of strikes at that point, and we decided to shut down UNZA for I think 2.5 years. And UNZA really was the only option you had for an IT sort of degree or a qualification those days. There wasn't a lot of really good options, especially for a degree. There was diplomas and everything else. And IT being a passion, I started, so in my family, maybe again going back a bit further. So my family comes from a background where my dad specifically doesn't believe kids need pocket money, right? They don't need cash. Kids need to study, and that's all they're supposed to do, and that's all they're mandated to do. Now, naturally, living in Zambia, going to college, especially a college like Zika's, you need to have a bit of pocket money. You need to be able to buy yourself a Coke at some point. And that was when my brother had moved to Dubai. He was working in Dubai, and he generously offered to take me down to Dubai on a holiday. And when I was in Dubai, I looked at things like cell phones and laptops, and it was amazing how much cheaper it was in Dubai than it was here in Zambia those days. So I kind of, again, nobody from ZRA here. Kind of smuggled in quite a few cell phones and laptops at the time, and started off with actually selling cell phones in college, because you had students who cell phones were just starting to become an in thing at that time. For those of you who remember the Nokia 3210s, where you could actually play snakes. Those games don't exist anymore. But yeah, so I started off with doing a bit of cell phones and stuff like that, and halfway through my dad picked up that I was doing this. And yeah, I mean, hell broke loose at home. And to a point where he said, look, going forward, I think, if you think you're that smart, then go ahead and pay for your own school fees. So that wasn't an easy thing to do. Paying for school fees, paying for exam fees, stuff like that. And I continued that when I got into employment. I mean, with the consent of my employers at the time, DCDM, I would, whenever I had a long weekend, I would take one extra day off and head out to Dubai, 2 days, buy stock of laptops and desktops. Actually come and assemble most of the desktops here, because they would actually come in on air freight. And at that point, I was paying duties and taxes and everything else, just for the record. So we went, and, I mean, I started off with that. In fact, I even got an order from my employers at the time to supply laptops. I think it was quite a good order. It was about 20 or 30 laptops at the time. And that's really where the passion for IT kind of came from. It was always something I wanted to do. Accounting was because my family is full of accountants. There was really not many options in Zambia at the time, so accounting became what I had to do at the time. Moving into your question a bit, so we started off NetOne, or I started off NetOne with a little office, a car, a little office. My office was right next to, and I take privilege in saying this, my office was right next to the late president when PF had their headquarters at Central Bank. So I was on the first floor and my office was right next to his, and I couldn't hear much of what he said, but anyway. So it was a little small office with a desk, a chair, the one laptop everyone talked about, and the one car I had. And decided to approach Sage, asked them for a partnership, which thankfully they gave me at the time. Took on a Sage partnership at the time and started from there. And Sage still remains a big part of our business. In 2000, so that was 2007. 2008, by then we'd got 2 employees, and then 3 employees, and 4 employees, and got to about 10 people or so. And we decided, let's kind of grow beyond just doing ERP systems. And that's when we started to get into hardware. So we took on a partnership with Dell. And at that point they were looking for what they called a tier 1 partner, which was effectively almost like a distributor in each country. So we took on a partnership with Dell, started off with Dell, worked our way through hardware supplies. In 2009 we acquired a local company that was into networking at the time, and they did local area networks, structured cabling and things like that. Brought them onto the team. That didn't work quite well, so that team was kind of replaced with a new team and everything else. So we started getting into almost anything and everything in IT at the time, and it became a proper Tamanga setup. You hear about an opportunity there, you jump into your car and drive over there. You don't even know whether you're going to be able to supply it, or you're going to be able to do anything with that deal, but you're just there. And that was 2009, and the business grew. I mean, we grew quite a bit from 2009 to 2012, where we started getting good breaks into a lot of the financial services sector institutions, some of the banks like Zanaco, Finance Bank, etc., in those days. And one of the things that as we started focusing a lot on corporates, one of the things that we started to realize with corporate institutions or both public and private sector institutions is they didn't have a lot of resilient backup processes. Their backups were very, they were not very formalized. They weren't sure if they could rely on these backups and everything else. And so in 2011, we decided we'll go with setting up a common facility where institutions can come and have their backups done from. And at that time, we called it a data center, not even knowing it. And remember, I'm born, bred, and lived in Zambia all my life. So data centers were already a thing of 10 years ago in the US. But when we started it here, it was quite a new concept. We were lucky enough to get a grant that helped fund a good portion of the capex built at that time for that data center. So 2011, 2012, we kind of got into design phase, we got into the project phase, we broke ground in 2012. Finally, in 2013, we managed to launch the actual data center facility, which some of you may have heard of as NData. So we've got two legal entities, which is NetOne IT, which is our systems integration business, and we've got NetOne Data, which is a subsidiary of NetOne IT, but owns and operates the data center facility itself. So on the data center side, we started offering backup as a service. We offer colocation. I mean, I'm not sure how many of you guys are from the tech industry here, so some of these words may just be jargon or Greek to you, but I mean, there's colocation that we offer, there's cloud computing in terms of software as a service, infrastructure as a service. So there's a lot of these different products that we started to offer in the data center. And yeah, that's pretty much where the business is today.
So some of the services that you're offering sound very unique to NetOne. Do you have any? I hope you can all hear me. Yeah. Do you have any competition? Because some of the things you've mentioned sound very, very unique to NetOne.
So it's unique in Zambia, right? But we do have. So it's not a simple answer. Do we have competition? Yes, we do. Do we have Zambian competition? No, at this point. So our competition currently is with the likes of Google, the likes of Amazon, who have a lot of these web services that are available. So you can go onto Amazon's website, you can order a virtual server, which you can do from us as well. So we do technically compete against, the international cloud providers. But in terms of co-location, I think one of the biggest advantages that we have as an institution in Zambia is we're not an ISP. We're not, and that works to our advantage as well. We don't actually have our own network, we don't operate our own network, so we don't actually compete against telcos or ISPs. We work with the telcos and the ISPs. So we developed our data center on the basis of what we call a carrier-neutral data center. So people who, right now when you go into, for those of you who have fiber outside your house, you may have 6 different providers who come and dug up your gardens every 2 weeks, right? Because you've got, Zamtel laying their fiber, and 2 weeks later you've got Liquid coming in and digging up a trench right next to it, and then you've got SmartNet, and you've got MTN, you've got Airtel. Sorry?
We have High now.
High. You've got a lot of these institutions that do that. So by keeping our data center vendor neutral, we said our data center now becomes a neutral meeting point for a lot of these ISPs. So we're trying to drive, we call it Connectify Zambia, right? It's an initiative where we're trying to drive all the ISPs to say, guys, you don't all need to go and lay your own fiber if there's already fiber presence to that location. Now you can start to share fiber, but you can hand off, or we call it a handoff, where you can hand off that capacity or that traffic at a vendor neutral location. So, and now it's not like an ISP like High has to go and put in their equipment at Zamtel because, they're seeing Zamtel as competition and Liquid like that. So everyone's kind of open to saying, okay, then we can move into that. So again, back to competition. Look, at this point, we don't. The government is in the process of actually building their own facilities called Zambia National Data Centers. So, which I believe will also go public quite soon, or be operationalized quite soon. So I think from a Zambian context, that would probably be our first sort of competition.
So with all these international partners, you mentioned Google, obviously for the web services, how do you ensure you maintain a certain level of service? You know, you're competing at that international level.
It's really difficult because you don't get the economies of scale in Zambia. I mean, the volumes are not the same as you would have with Amazon Web Services, for example. Amazon have millions of virtual private servers, as an example, right? I mean, we have a capacity to host about 2,000. You know, we've currently got about 200-300 VMs that are running for different customers. But I mean, if you look at the economies of scale, they're different. But also, which is why, I mean, you look at an Amazon data center, I mean, you're talking about 3 football pitches put together, right? Ours is 500 square meters in size. So there is a big difference. I think one of our biggest advantages, again, is the fact that being in Zambia, connectivity within Zambia is, I mean, we all talk about high internet costs, and we talk about, you know, it being so painful to actually get a decent internet cost. I think that's changing. You know, there's a lot of new entrants into the market, which is starting to create quite stiff competition. So pricing will start to, it has come down over the last 3 to 4 years, and I think it will continue to go down. But one of the advantages we have is that we don't have to use international capacity. So if you're a user of Amazon, for example, Amazon Web Services or Google services of any sort, you have to use internet capacity to reach their service, because their infrastructure is either sitting in Limerick in Ireland, or it's sitting in Sweden, or it's sitting anywhere in the world. Whereas you could now get local loop connectivity, which is a quarter the price of internet capacity. So users in Zambia then have a lot more, or they can access our services a lot cheaper than they can from Amazon.
I actually like the fact that you're here, so, you know, kind of like feel secure to come to you than to go to where I don't know where they're hosting this service that I want to have them host. So coming back to NetOne, what is, from 2007 to today, what's your proudest moment?
By far the launch of that data center.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was a dream project. It was something that was, you know, and remember, it's very capex intensive. It's
Absolutely.
not cheap to build a data center. It's not cheap to operate a data center. I mean, we built that data center, we commissioned it on the first, well, we like to say 2nd of April, because 1st of April is April Fool's Day. So we commissioned it on the 2nd of April in 2013, and we ran that data center for 3 months. The first 3 months where we completely ran the data center without a single customer. We had full staffing complements, we had electricity bills, we had all our maintenance bills, we had security to deal with, we had everything that we had to run. And that was really painful, to say the least. I mean, you're spending $40,000 a month and you have no idea when this is going to start coming in. And when I say 3 months, I mean 3 months later our first customer was giving us $100 a month. You know, so it's, I mean, it was a very difficult time, but it's still a very proud moment for the fact that, you know, we managed to pull it off, we managed to get it off the ground, and managed to keep it alive.
So, Bejoy, for someone who's started a business in Zambia and they could be struggling for one reason or the other, what would you say are some of the things that have caused you to be successful, to get to a place where you are?
Okay, so in our family and at work, we call this the favor of God. And for some of you that may sound ironic, for some of you that may sound cheesy or whatever it may be, but you know, I personally believe you know, we were very blessed with a lot of things that happened for us, or happened to us. They happened at the right times, in the right places, and I think that was really a big driving part to where we are today. Look, I mean, I'm probably jumping the gun here. I'm sure you have a few more questions, but I'm probably getting to some of those questions.
It's fine.
But you know, I would just like everyone to know a few things in terms of, I know this is an entrepreneurial sort of event, and everyone that's here is to is here to kind of listen to how NetOne made it, or how this business became what it is today, which indeed it's a proud moment for me. But what I'd also like to talk about is really getting everyone to appreciate that there is a fine print in this, right? It's not just what you see on the face of things. And one of my friends told me about this concept of the, actually just heard about it probably a year or 2 years ago, the concept of the paddling duck. Has anyone heard of the paddling duck? Yes. So, just for the benefit of those who haven't heard about the paddling duck, I mean, the paddling duck is, or the concept of it, or the theory behind it is, you look at a duck in water, right, and you see it on the surface of water, gliding through without, I mean, it's just so peaceful and it's so calm and everything else. And then you go underwater and you see what it's actually doing with its feet and how much work needs to go into that. And I think that's the best way of really understanding what an entrepreneurship journey is all of you guys can sit here today and say, wow, or well done, or not even well done, but okay, good for you. But it's a lot more than just that. There's a lot that you go through as an entrepreneur in trying to get to what you think is success, or what you think is the right way of doing things.
So where do you see NetOne 5 years from now? Do you want to go outside Zambia, or are there specific things you want to do in Zambia?
Yeah, look, I think, we're already, I've been traveling the last few months. We're currently looking at setting up an office in Malawi. We're just waiting for a few things to fall into place, our board approvals and so on and so forth. And we're looking at venturing into Malawi. It's probably before the end of this year. So the next two months or so we should set up base there. We're probably going to start off on our systems integration side and not jump into an investment of a data center just yet. Although the regulator is quite excited to see a data center operator come into the market. But yes, look, ideally I would like to see this a Pan-African institution. We are currently looking at options around listing on the local stock exchange. So that would be something that again would be a bit of a dream project for me, something that I'd like to see, because I think there's a lot of people that have contributed to this business, and it's just, as much as I take a lot of that credit, where I'm sitting in front of you and giving you this whole story, it's not just about me. There's a lot of people who have added value over the last 9 years, who have done their own things in different ways. And I think making this a public institution, or at least a part of it public, would now give a lot of people outside us an opportunity to be part of what we hope to be a great journey.
So looking at the Zambian setup, I hear a lot of entrepreneurs say it's very difficult to set up business in Zambia, it's very difficult to do business in Zambia. Now we have commercial power problems like we had earlier. Some people say it's very difficult to get financing and so forth. From your perspective, having been an entrepreneur since 2007, what would you say to such people?
They're completely right. Absolutely right. It's not easy to do. Well, I personally don't think it's easy to do business anywhere in the world. That's a start, right? This concept of entrepreneurship it's great when you see it on paper and you hear somebody talk about it, and I'm telling you the rosy picture of everything, right? But there's nights that I have had to, and this is no exaggeration, there's nights, my wife is here, friends are here who know about this. There's nights I've gone back home and I didn't have money to buy power, right? Because I had a prepaid meter. It's not all about the rosy picture. And you've got to, and I think, look, I'm quite proud saying that. I'm quite proud of the fact that we've survived it. We've survived almost being repossessed by a bank. We've gone through a lot in the 9 years, right? And yeah, I could go on all night giving you my sob story, but I don't think that's really why I'm here. But in terms of challenges, and again, I'm not talking about global challenges. I think let me stick to what we have at the national level. Everyone talks about financing, right? And financing is, yes, it's an issue. People have a challenge with financing. It's not easy to get money. Even if you do, it's really expensive, right? You pay very high premiums. Whether it's dollar, I mean, Kwacha, you're sitting as much as 35–40% now in some cases. I mean, you just think about how much work you have to put in to pay the bank or work for the bank, right, at that point. So it's expensive. But to me, in my personal 9 years, I don't think, I mean, financing has been a challenge, and it's, I've borrowed on, private money markets where you pay 10–12% interest per month, right? So I've done that, but I personally still don't believe that your biggest challenge is actually financing this country. I think your biggest challenge is going to come to a point where you need a team to work with you, right? And that is where, in my view, is the biggest hurdle you're all going to face if you take that entrepreneurial journey. Because in Zambia, for the good or for the bad, you have this concept that it's quite easy to go out there and do things, right? And everyone who doesn't have a job, or everyone who can't find a job within a space of 2 weeks or a month, decides to go out there and try out a business venture of some sort. Now, I mean, it sounds very cheeky coming from somebody who did that, right? Or who took that step and said, "Oh, I'm going to go and try and be an entrepreneur." But I mean, and that's why I earlier said concept of the favor of God, right? Because I was lucky that, and I had the favor of God, and that's why it panned out, right? If it didn't, I would have, probably lost a few years of trying to run this, and moreover, I would have probably also a bit difficult. And that's all I'd like everyone to think about as you're talking about challenges. Is, yes, you can do a Tamanga thing on your own. You can run a Contempa, you can run a trucking business, you can do, you can set up an IT retail store, you can set up an IT business, whatever it is, right? But your biggest challenge is going to be finding a team of people that are willing to work with you for the long haul. Because remember, you're not going to pay them what a bank is going to be able to pay them today, especially if they're a shop resource, right? I mean, then you're not going to be able to pay them that money, and they've got to be willing to wait it out with you, right? And I mean, we've had a lot of people in our business that from senior management all the way down to ordinary technical engineers who decided to go and venture into a business themselves, and some of them are still in it. Some of them are back in employment, and some of them have done, I think, reasonably well, right? But it's a big risk you're taking, and the reason I'm saying it's a risk is don't just look at it from the fact that I'm just going to lose a year or 2 or 3 or 4, because once you get into it, you're going to keep trying it, right? You're going to keep going for as long as you can, until your wife just says, "You know what," smacks you silly and says, "Okay, we need food at home," right? Or your husband, whichever way. And that becomes difficult to manage at that point. So you then decide, okay, I'm going to go back into employment. You have a background with employment or qualification and all of that. But it becomes difficult to get back into employment, because as an employer, even if I'm looking at somebody, I mean, I do a lot of interview stuff, and one of the things that I tend to see in almost 9 out of 10 graduates is I ask them, what is your 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year plan? All right? Everyone within the 1 year it's all about experience, and I want to get into to learning the ropes and everything else. Almost 9 out of 10 tell me in their 3 year and 5 year plan that they want to run their own business. Again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, right? But you've got to be very wise about how you want to do that. You can have a lot of people who will tell you, go start your own thing, get your own thing done, that's financial freedom, that's everything. Yeah, it's rosy on the outside, but it isn't on the inside. So think through that, because you're going to have, the same way you're trying to start up a business, right? In a few months, one of the guys who are with you is going to also think the same way you're thinking, right? So finding that team, I think, is your biggest challenge. Followed by finance. Finance is difficult. It's hard to find. It's not easy to get funding in Zambia. We have quite a number of discipline issues, right? Which comes from either previous employment or whatever it is. So you're gonna have to deal with a lot of these things as you get into your own entrepreneurial journey. You're gonna start seeing that people are going to have their difficult times, and you're gonna have to share those difficult times with them.
So we'll open it up to the audience as you prepare your questions. I'll ask Bejoy another question. So what drives you? What motivates you every day? You face these challenges, but you're still driven. What gives you that push?
That it's not one anymore.
That it's not NetOne anymore. It's net many.
Net many. I mean, my 3-year-old daughter last week, when I said, "Do you like NetOne?" She says, "No, I don't like NetOne. I like Net2 and Net3." I'm like, okay, I don't know what I like. But look, I personally don't think it's financials that has driven me. I think what has excited me over the last 9 years is the fact that I'm building, and again, maybe because I grew up in Kawamba for a long time, and I've been in Zambia for so many years. I personally want to see an indigenous Zambian business grow, right? And I think we've grown. We've grown to a point where, a lot of you have, I'm hoping at least 80% of this crowd here has heard of NetOne in one way or the other. Right? And I think that's a big achievement for a local company, right? I mean, if we look at the number, you can count on 2 hands how many indigenous Zambian companies, or Zambian grown, or Zambian startup companies actually made it to a corporate level, right? A corporate level. And you look at neighboring countries. I mean, South Africa may be far-fetched, but go to places like Botswana, right? Most of you would have heard of Shoppes, right? Supermarket, which is just opening in Zambia. I mean, they've got 52 retail outlets in Botswana. A Botswanan-grown small startup that had 1 supermarket grew to 52 in Botswana, has 14 in Zimbabwe, 6 in Zambia today, close to 20 in South Africa. Right? And I mean, we need to start seeing this as Zambians as well. We need to start seeing that we're growing our own corporate community in Zambia. We're growing our own corporate institutions to make them larger, to make them regional, to make them Pan-African. And to me, that's what drives me the most, is to see that growth and to see this business get to the next level.
We're actually quite happy to see NetOne and where you are right now. And I know it's going to get it's going to get to that level where it's Pan-African. So the first question, actually, Java earlier was telling me, I love Bejoy. He's the first guy who's asking you the question. He actually told me, please tell him I love him. You've had your moment.
That's not exactly how I said it.
I'm glad, for the record.
Do I get a mic? No?
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, Bejoy, I thought I should steal the thunder and get in first.
The poor guy's standing.
Boom. Sorry, I'll pass the mic to you. The data center side of things, actually, opportunities that lie there as you grow bigger, and that's the whole reason why Amazon keeps on expanding by the square footage. Something came in my mind, mainly linked to something like Netflix, for example. We're all struggling with DSTV, though we love it, and we keep on paying, this whole idea of competition and lack of, and with internet getting faster and more, with Liquid Telecom expanding, and literally you walk out of your house, there's a pole there, and you think someone's going to be climbing up above your barbed wire to jump in, because they want to see what's there. But they're putting lines everywhere to help with photocom, to get the MiFi kind of side of things expand. And the question is that obviously when we have cheap, high-speed fiber right on our doorstep, and the opportunity to be able to pay from 1,000 kwacha, which in relation right now is $100, to $10 a month to Netflix, is that an opportunity, for example, someone who's got a data center, to be able to reduce our costs, because the fact that now that data is going to be locally stored as opposed to being pulled from South Africa or Kenya or Malaysia, or should I say closer by to the honeymoon suite, which is one of the islands across from South Africa 2 hours away, where the data is there. So is that something that I know you're expanding and you have to look at what's viable for your business, but situations where of content from internet and where people are paying on subscription, is that something that is an avenue for your type of business, or data centers were never designed for the likes of Netflix?
Right, so first, for the record, that was quite rude of you to sit and jump. Anyway, but since you had the mic here, I'll start with your question first. So, just to beat you to it, I mean, we're already in talks with Netflix. So, Netflix, as I'm sure most of you know, they've launched in South Africa. They launched a few months ago. Well, actually, it's probably closer to a year now since they've been in South Africa. So we have been talking to Netflix. And you're right. So if you remember, I talked about going through to Amazon Web Services, and that gives us an advantage because we're local, right? So from a tech perspective, what you're doing when you're going outside Zambia, you call it Internet Protocol. So you're going outside, you're going into the open internet, right? And the capacity of that is very expensive, right? Whereas if you're using that within Zambia, or you're using capacity within the borders of Zambia, it's significantly cheaper. Now, when we look at, I mean, so Netflix is definitely something that we can do, and you see $100, for example, you talked about 1,000 kwacha a month for an internet package. Now, if you have Netflix hosted in Zambia, you will probably be paying $10 a month, as opposed to paying the $100 a month for international capacity, because you're now not going, you don't have to go across the border. And these are called caches, so there's the Google cache, there's the Alchemy cache, there's a lot of caches. There's already 2 caches in Zambia. Netflix are looking at it, but they're still considering, viability, and they're looking, because it's still very expensive for them to bring their content into Zambia over that international capacity. So yes, I mean, we are looking at avenues like Netflix. We've been talking to Google, we've been talking to Amazon as well. On various products and offerings. We've been talking to the likes of Uber. So there's a number of different avenues that we're looking at. And our data centers, or what we call carrier neutral data centers, are specifically or are primarily built to cater for customers like the Netflixes of this world and the Googles of this world and the Amazons of this world.
That sounds exciting.
Therefore, it's the flight.
Hello again.
Someone give him a mic, please.
Hi, Bejoy. Shupio's right, but that's a topic for another day. So my name is Njava Mtambo, and I'm CEO of Musanga Logistics. It's a technology startup that is connecting businesses like .com Zambia to cyclists, riders, and drivers that fulfill deliveries. We've completed over 4,000 transactions thus far, and we'll be representing Zambia in Finland in a few weeks. My question is with regards to raising finance. How have you managed to raise finance for large projects such as the data center? And would you recommend grants, and what kind of investment do you recommend? Thank you.
All right, so good on you for the small marketing pitch there on the sound. The 4,000 transactions and all of that, yes, we all had it, and well done. But that's an entrepreneur in the making. That's what he's doing. Is any opportunity to sell your business, that's what you're doing, and that's good. So I'm not bringing you down in any way. But as far as financing goes, to be honest, I really don't think there's a fixed equation, right? I mean, people will tell you that don't go over a 50-50 ratio of 50 equity and 50 debt. I was a person who was at 100% debt, right? So I don't personally think, I think every business will have its own different structures that will work, right? Some which cannot afford expensive funding, some funding. And I've learned the hard way. I mean, we, again, I mean, maybe I shouldn't put him on the spot, but we back with Capmont, and the Capmont chair is actually here as well. So, I mean, it's, when you go to financial institutions, you look at what is the quickest and easiest option you have to get money, right? And so when we were going through to start building our data centers and everything else, we started getting overdrafts, we started getting short-term loans, right? which was the wrong financial structure for a capital investment of that nature, because you're looking at least 5 years, 3 to 5 years before you're starting to get profitable, or at least in our context. Taking short-term financing is difficult, so you start to then restructure your financing, and again, I guess this is where the accounting side kind of helped in my case, was, and of course a lot of advice from our non-executive board at the time, and we managed to restructure a lot of that financing. But some institutions don't get the chance to do that restructuring, and they go under before, right? Because they've taken the wrong method of financing. But to answer your question in one simple line, I personally don't think there is a one rule fits all. You ask me, are grants good? Of course grants are good. They're free money, right? So of course you've got a lot of work to do for them. I mean, you've got the reporting, you've got a lot of the results that have to be achieved, the deliverables and all of those things. But if you look at it in the scheme of things, I mean, it's a lot cheaper to do that or to get a grant than to go through commercial finance. So yes, it's painful to go through all the reporting and the deadlines and everything else that goes with it. But it's if you get access to it and you think you can report and get everything that they need as results, then by all means, that's probably an easy option.
There's a hand there. Many hands that side.
Thank you very much, Bejoy. My name is Samson Banda. I'm currently in formal employment at Citibank. I've got a comment and 2 questions. So the comment is basically to thank you for what you've shared today. It's been very insightful, it's been very helpful. The first of my questions is, you mentioned your proudest moment. I want to flip that around and get a sense of your lowest moment, a time when you perhaps wanted to quit and what kept you going. The second question relates to a comment you made concerning the Zambia National Data Center. If I understand it correctly, it's going to be under ZICTA, which, again, if I understand correctly, is a regulator of yours. How do you plan to handle a competitor which will essentially be your regulator as well? Thank you.
I can see I'm going to get arrested after this one. Okay, let me start with the first question, which is also, I guess, the easier question. What was the lowest moments? I mean, it's really hard to pin which one was the lowest. There was just so many. I guess getting home without electricity was pretty bad, and those days we had no load shedding. So, yeah, I mean, now you get used to it, you get home and there's no lights, so what? I mean, candlelight dinner, it's fun. But, yeah, I mean, when you get to those points where you just see, I mean, look, I've been open here, I've even told you guys about the fact that we were almost repossessed by a commercial bank. No names mentioned, it's not Capmont. But we've been through those, and that can be extremely torturous when you're 25, right? Because you're not used to seeing legal demands, and you're not used to seeing 14 days, or we repossess, or we walk into your property. And for the good or for the bad, again, when I was working at DCDM, I was fortunate enough to work with the corporate recovery division. And I don't know how many of you know what corporate recovery is. There's not a lot going on at the moment, but corporate recovery is effectively when somebody defaults on paying the bank and the bank repossesses, right? And usually the bank doesn't do it themselves. They appoint what they call a receiver or a liquidator. You may have heard of these terms. So, I mean, DCDM did receiverships, which was effectively being appointed as a receiver. And there's times that we've walked into these recoveries where you literally walk into the institution and you say, guys, sorry, you haven't paid XYZ bank and we are shutting you down today, right? The look on the faces, or the look on the face of those owners and those employees is something that's daunting, okay? Because you're effectively telling some employees that have probably been in the institution for 20, 25 years that, sorry guys, you're shutting down today, you don't have a job, and you actually have no compensation. Right? It must be really painful. I haven't been in that on the flip side, but I'm sure it is, because you can see it on those faces. So it's very freaky to go through that. We've been through it, and I would say if I rated it, it was probably one of the highest low points in my life. But yeah, there's just several. Getting to the difficult question. So, I mean, there was actually an event, ironically there was an event this morning, which was run by the Zambia National Data Centers in conjunction with ZICTA, and we were invited to this event. ZICTA have assured us that this is going to be a completely independent institution, that it's registered as a parastable, it's under the IDC. We have raised our concerns about it.